the traditional Latin Mass has never been abrogated.
Guys, in today's video, let's put an end to this constant infighting among Catholics, those who advocate for the traditional Latin Mass and those who accept the Church's authority regarding the Novus Ordo. We will start by hearing from Raymond, a respected Catholic writer and broadcaster, as he shares his thoughts on why the Church should consider bringing back the traditional Latin Mass. Let's listen.
It remains the central worship, the foundational worship upon which everything in the Western world, as far as worship is concerned, relies and stands. Either this is something beautiful and true, holy and important,
which
and I think it is.
Clearly is. There's no
and
dispute.
eternal.
Yep.
And eternal.
Yep.
Because it's created all of these saints in its wake. Why wouldn't you want more of that rather than the improvised, chaotic, do-it-yourself, drop this, add that, I don't like that, let's do a banner wave here, let's pull out the skateboard now. This is madness.
Yeah, it is.
It's not part of worship of God. If you take him seriously, if you really believe that, and I do, I mean, all of these externals, and see, as a guy who comes from theater, it's so obvious. They took the inconceivable, what you could never see, and they made it visual. They took what you'll never hear, and they gave it sound. When they break out these songs that I could have written
why do we do it?
Yeah, I could have written it on the way over. I mean, Lord, we love you. Yeah, we love you. What is this? You've got gorgeous hymns that span the centuries. Sing those. Just sing those. If you can improve on it, I'm all for it. If you can do a new Come Rain or Come Shine for the Mass, do it. I'm all for it. I doubt you're going to do it.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it yet, Matt.
Now, there are so many things I completely disagree with what Raymond is saying, and let me go through them one by one. First, he claims that the entire worship of the Western world has its foundation in the Latin Mass. Exactly. That's the very point of the reform brought about by the Second Vatican Council, to move beyond a narrow Eurocentric expression of worship and open the liturgy to the whole world. The reform wasn't about discarding our roots, it was about fulfilling Christ's command to go and make disciples of all nations. Isn't the Church supposed to be universal, not merely Western? Or are we suggesting that God speaks only in Latin? Secondly, Raymond says that the Latin Mass shaped the lives of countless saints. Sure, but let's not twist the cause and effect here. The saints didn't become holy because of the Latin Mass. They became holy because they cooperated with God's grace. To draw a direct correlation between sainthood and the Latin Mass is almost equivalent to the Protestant doctrine of faith alone, which claims one is saved merely by belief rather than cooperation with grace. And finally, he argues that Catholics are somehow deprived because they don't worship with Western music. I just don't get that. Why should liturgical worship in India or Africa be chained to an European aesthetic? Isn't genuine Catholicity about embracing the richness of every culture and offering it back to God? We don't lose reverence by singing in our native tongues or our own musical styles. We incarnate the gospel into our soil. That's what evangelization looks like. Just because you don't like something doesn't make it abusive. Let's turn to what Bishop Barron has to say about this.
But I came of age at a time when the liturgy was a little crazy. I came of age in the late 60s and the 70s. I remember balloon masses and clown masses, and I remember mass with a priest coming up the aisle on a motorcycle. So I lived through all that wild stuff, which was completely alien, of course, to the letter and spirit of Vatican II. I rejoiced in John Paul II, not so much the formal statements, but watch John Paul II as he celebrated the Mass. That had a revolutionary impact on the whole church. Watch this great saintly figure, this great personality in von Hildebrand's sense, saying the Mass the way he did. That brought a lot of us online, Now, another angle to it, the famous debate between the Novus Ordo and the extraordinary form. I have zero quarrel with Benedict XVI opening us up to a wider practice of the extraordinary form. It's done here in Los Angeles. It was done in Chicago, where I used to be. Zero quarrel with it. What I quarrel with is sometimes people who embrace the extraordinary form think the Novus Ordo Mass is just no good. It's just not up to snuff. And my typical response when I hear that is, but it fed the spiritual lives of Mother Teresa and John Paul II. It can't be all bad. They found that Mass richly spiritually uplifting. So that's how I look at that whole range of issues around the liturgy. Those of us who lived through a real corrupt time welcome the way John Paul kind of brought us online. But the Novus Ordo, to me, can be a very powerful and very rich expression of the Church's liturgy.
As Bishop Barron clearly explains, the Novus Ordo Mass can be celebrated just as reverently as the traditional Latin Mass. That's why I've never understood how anyone can call a rite itself abusive. A rite doesn't lose its holiness because of its structure or language. It's the heart of the priest that determines its reverence. Think of it this way. Blaming the rite for irreverence is like blaming a musical instrument for bad music. The problem isn't the piano, it's the pianist. In the same way, the Mass, whether Novus Ordo or traditional Latin Mass, is a sacred instrument in the hands of the celebrant. So when a priest approaches the altar with humility, obedience, and love for the Eucharist, the Novus Ordo becomes just as transcendent, just as soul-stirring as any liturgy in church history. But if the celebrant treats it casually or self-indulgently, even the most ancient rite loses its beauty. So the question isn't whether one form is abusive and the other pure. The real question is whether we, priest and faithful alike, approach the liturgy with hearts ready to adore. In the final clip, Bishop Barron explains how, after the Second Vatican Council reformed the liturgy, there has been remarkable growth in parts of Asia and Africa, with attendance of Sunday Mass increasing by leaps and bounds. Let's listen.
Decline in certain areas of church life in the West is a very complex phenomenon and is caused by all sorts of factors. A couple observations. One is, look at the church in Africa. The post-conciliar African Catholic Church is flourishing, is booming. And trust me, it's not based on a nostalgic return to the Latin Mass. I mean, I've been to Africa and seen African liturgies. To me, it's a beautiful example of the rich enculturation of the faith that Vatican II was about. Look at the church in parts of Asia where it's flourishing. There is a kind of myopia of a lot of people in the West to say, well, you know, looking at our culture and our society, things look grim in certain ways. So I think you've got to get past that and accept a much richer account of how we, in our part of the world, got into our situation.
And honestly, I think Bishop Barron has absolutely hit the nail on the head. The problem is that most Catholic content creators today come from the West, mainly the United States and parts of Europe. Their perspective is shaped entirely by what they see in their own countries, and they are often completely oblivious to what's happening in the rest of the world. As a result, they assume that the Second Vatican Council was somehow a failure, or that the liturgical reforms led to a decline in faith and church attendance. But that's a very narrow, Western-centric view. If we take a step back and look at the global picture, the story is very different. In many parts of Asia, Africa, and Latin America, the reforms of the liturgy have actually revived the faith of millions. The Mass, celebrated in local languages and enriched by cultural expressions of reverence, has made the Church truly universal, reaching people in a way that was once unimaginable. So far from weakening the Church, the reform has brought the gospel to life in regions that are now some of the most vibrant and faithful Catholic communities in the world. So my earnest plea to those who advocate for the traditional Latin Mass is this: by all means, attend it with your families if it nourishes your faith. But please don't impose it on the rest of us who are perfectly content worshipping with the Novus Ordo. I hope this video is helpful. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. God bless you.